Hi, when did Max start working at the mill? I would say it was anywhere 1942 to 1943, somewhere in there. When did he retire? So he retired in 1982 after 40 years of service. The move to Hyacinth happened before I was born, and I am Pam Jimenez, Max's daughter, and I was born October 13th, 1959. So the family moved to Hyacinth in, I believe it was 1956, something around there, a few years before I was even born. So this is the only house that I ever lived in growing up. And it's still here, and I'm still living here on a part-time basis with my dad, who turned 90 on Thursday. And today is Sunday. So let's see, what did you do for fun growing up? Well, when I was in grade school, life on Hyacinth Street was pretty special. It was just sort of idyllic, where a lot of kids were our same age. There was a lot of them on this street, and we were able just to go outside free-neely, just run around, play ball in the street, play anything that we can think of. We had no video games, nothing electronic to play with, so we used our imagination, and we had the luxury of being able to have a safe environment. There just wasn't crime to be even thought of or worried about. So as kids can go outside and play out until dark or whatever our curfew was, and just do whatever the heck we wanted, and it was wonderful. So growing up was tons of good memory from the kids on Hyacinth. I'm still in touch with lots of them, and we all have the same recollection of our life growing up here on Hyacinth Street. The kinds of things that we did for fun really, were things like I just mentioned. Where one of the most brilliant things I think my dad did for the kids, for the girls especially, was he built a playhouse out in the backyard. And this little house went through years and years and years of fun for us kids, the girls growing up. I played in it so many years. All the neighbors would play with me. We were able just to go out there for hours and all day on the weekends. Sometimes we'd spend the night in the playhouse, and we were just out of our parents' hair and into our own imagination and fun. And it was clean and wonderful, and we just, became independent in a way by doing that and spending all those hours out there. So that was a lot of fun. Sometimes we would take little vacations, some road trips, lots of trips up to Denver, Colorado Springs. It was a big deal, on Sunday to drive up to Colorado Springs to go and eat, like at a simple place like even Burger King, because it had just opened, and things like that were exciting and fun. Some of the other things that I remember doing is, every once in a while we'd go on really big vacations. So one time we got to go to California, spent, I don't know, probably a month just traveling on the road and getting there and doing everything that kids do while they're in California, going to Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, San Diego Zoo, just all those things. We visited family along the way, both directions, and just have really wonderful memories of those types of vacations. We also went on vacation to visit my mom's family, and her sister lived in Indiana, and we would just pile in the car and travel over there, maybe spend a week with her family. She had 5 kids, so there was plenty to do, plenty of fun, plenty of entertainment for all of the kids during those types of vacations. We never took any flight vacations. It was unheard of, for us to get into an airplane and go fly somewhere. So we never did anything like that growing up. Did the mill provide good benefits? And how do I feel that this is a reflection of life now? So just knowing and recalling what I do know now, I think that during the time that my dad was there, I think the benefits were wonderful. We just never wanted for anything. You know, they had great health insurance, great dental insurance, everything. We just seemed to be covered. And he had, an actual pension that he's still drawing on. He's 90 years old, and he's still living off of his pension. It's still part of his income to this day. So I think he just kind of lived and worked at the steel mill at an ideal time where things were busy, benefits were good, the salary was good. We were middle class, we weren't rich, we weren't poor, we were fine. We were totally comfortable with the lifestyle that my dad's job provided for us. So how do you feel the mill affected our family culture? Positive effect or negative? And I would just absolutely say positive because of what was offered to us. A couple of times I remember growing up, my dad they would go on strike. The Steelworkers Union would go on strike, and they were trying to come to terms with their contract. And if they didn't come to terms, then they would strike for a while. And one of the things I remember they were holding off for was the number of weeks of vacation that they felt they were either entitled to or earned, and that vacation time was 13 weeks of vacation. And I just thought, growing up, I just thought, oh yeah, that's totally cool. That's normal. That should be our dad should be able to have 13 weeks of vacation because he works hard all of his life, and he should be able to have that much time off with his family and kids. So his wife and kids. So they did end up getting that 13 weeks vacation and it wasn't every year, of course. It was like certain times a year or certain number of years would pass. And I don't know if it was every 5 years or whatever it was, but still to have that amount of time off was incredible, and it was a wonderful thing that was provided or offered. Does anyone else in the family work at the mill? And not any longer. I mean, we had family members that worked there. My grandfather worked there. Some uncles worked there. One of my uncles even he was killed out there at the mill, and that was years and years and years ago. But I don't even. I think either I was probably either a toddler or not even 5 years old when that happened, and nobody that I know of in our family is still working there. When get hurt, and yes, like I said a minute ago, my uncle fell and he was killed. So that was terrible, terrible loss. My father does recall that to this day pretty vividly. And the street that we grew up on was called Hyacinth. So the question is, was the Hyacinth house a large house at the time? And I would say no. Like I felt like we had plenty of room. It was comfortable. I don't ever think that we thought it was huge. We all had our own bedrooms. But as I said before, we grew up on this street where we can just live out through the yard, out through the neighborhood, and the whole town really was ours. I mean, I would remember getting on a bicycle on a Saturday morning and just riding all around town, going to the city park from here, going to the west side. It was just a wonderful time. So, getting back to the house size, I would say no, that I wouldn't say that it was a huge house, and it was just medium and comfortable, and it was good enough. And this house is still, now it's like a mid-century modern house, which is very cool, and it's in great shape. My dad always kept it up, and now my sister and I are doing our best to keep everything going, keeping the lawn looking nice, keeping repairs going, all that kind of stuff. So it's still a wonderful home and lots of really, really fun memories living in this home. Let's see. The next question is, what was Grandpa's or Max's work schedule like? And he worked, shift work. So sometimes he'd have to go in at 5:30 in the morning, maybe work from 6 to 3 or something like that, whatever the shift was. he would always, always, always opt for overtime hours if it was offered. So he would work lots of 12-hour shifts. So maybe he would be gone from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. He would be dead tired when he got home. My mom always had a nice hot meal for him. She also used to pack his lunch every day. So she would get up with him in the morning, like at the 5:30 a.m., pack him a fresh lunch. She never wanted to pack it the night before because she wanted to have it as fresh as possible for him. And then again, when he got home, then she would have the night meal and the dinner meal ready for him. And I remember us eating meals together like almost every night when he was on a shift where he was able to eat meals with us. Sometimes he would work that graveyard shift, which we all hated it. We didn't like being in the house alone without him. Even though, a lot of times he was just sleeping, kind of getting caught up on, he just was such a hard worker and working so many hours. And, but that graveyard shift, my mom is she was a very, very strong person, wasn't afraid of anything, and I remember one time, I'll get off on a different tangent here for a second, but one time I remember when my dad was working the night shift, my mom thought somebody was out in the backyard, and so she went out there with a baseball bat and just started yelling at whoever was back there and telling him to get the H out of there and that kind of thing. And so she took charge and just didn't cower to any danger that was around us, and she was always very protective when my dad wasn't around to do it, to be in the home himself while he was at work. There's a question here is, what did Grandma do while he was at work? Well, she was very busy with 3 kids, so she did all the things that a stay-at-home mom would do. She kept the house running. She kept everything churning and did a wonderful job. I mean, even when we were in grade school, I remember coming home from school, like for lunch. Like I must have been in maybe kindergarten. And I would come home from school, and my mom would have a hot lunch sitting here waiting for me. And she would have comic books sitting there, whenever it was at an age where I could read. And it was just really, really sweet, really idyllic, again, kind of childhood. So my mom just devoted herself to her kids and to her family and to this house and to her husband. She didn't work outside of the house the whole time I grew up, and she kept everything running. The last question is, what did they do on vacations? And so I sort of talked about what we did when we were growing up as kids, and later on when we became teenagers and the parents would go on trips by themselves. It was always either like to Las Vegas or a place where there was gambling involved because they loved it. My dad's favorite pastime was playing poker. He would have poker games here at the house with all of his friends, and sometimes it would be on a Saturday night. Sometimes those games would last for 24 hours, and my mom would take care of the poker players, and she would feed them and cater to them and make sure that they were cared for and fed and lots of drinks and everything. It was just part of our family culture to have these games, and my dad loved it. We loved it too because the extra money meant either vacation money or maybe an improvement to the house and things like that. So it was just really a neat thing, a kind of an extra income for my dad. And my mom loved it too because she loved catering to people and absolutely, treating people like they were family, always feeding people, always preparing meals, baking, that kind of thing. So we would be able to either go on those vacations or do things for the house, improving the house, and just having a little extra cash to do whatever we wanted. So that's the end of the questions, and I'll go ahead and sign off now. Thanks.
Max Jimenez, 2552 and IS in Pueblo, Colorado. and
Where did
1943, crane operator, 8-hour shifts. I had a brother that got killed. He was a welder, and he was about 12 feet, maybe 14 feet above on a steel girder. And what do you call it? And on his welder, the tip of it fell off. I mean, he burned out. So he threw his torch down so they could put a new tip on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they put a new tip on it, they threw up to him, and he reached out for it. And when he reached out for it, he fell off of the steel girder that he was on. He fell off of it, and he hit the edge of a steel tub that they had there during. That's when he got killed. I can't remember what year it was, to tell you the truth. Well, it really affected us because it was so sad that it fell down and got killed. His family also. His family was only, they were little kids. Maybe he had 4 or 5 kids, I think, and the oldest one was, at that time, was maybe 7 or 8 at that time. Well, mostly my job consisted of running that crane, and I had to clean the rods so that my fellow friends could make the wire. And when they made the wire, it would go down into inside the mill, and then it distributed to the customer that bought the wire. And that was the story on the wire.
let's see here.
Different things. Took the kids, like, say, to the city park, to the zoo there. Anything that they enjoy, what they enjoy mostly. And just turn them loose and let them do what they wanted to do. My mother was always good to us, and whenever we needed a babysitter, she would come and babysit the kids if we went somewhere. And that's about it.
You guys had a pretty good life.